Morning, everybody. Good to see so many people here. Treat me gently. This is the first time that I've come out and spoken in over 2 years, and it feels wrong. I've been only seeing people this big for 2 years, and you're all quite scary from up here. So, I'm just really going to tell you stories today. Stories about an exciting time, about opportunity, about innovation, and that's right now. It's great to be here in Dubai, one of the places on the planet that we see huge potential for healthcare and wellness over the course of the next 2 years. If you're thinking longer than 2 years, then you've got to stop, because the world 2 years ago didn't look like today, and there's no way anybody can stand up here and hand on heart tell you what the year 2025 is going to look like. So we're just going to touch on some points that we see about being the future of digital health. But humor me, I'm just going to tell you a quick story first. I'm going to take you back to early 20th century, and Professor Albert Einstein, is talking to his group of students on the west coast of America. And they're handing out some exam papers, and a student noticed that the exam paper was the same as the exam paper the previous year, and nervously went up to the professor and said, "Sir, you've set us the same challenge that you set last year." And he said, I hope he said this anyway, this is what you can find on Google. He said, the challenge is the same, but the answers are different. And if you think about what we're doing in healthcare, if you think about patients, you think about healthcare professionals, you think about the organizations that we are all trying to help get better, the challenges are the same. Human behavior is the same. Getting people to take their medicines, getting people to visit their healthcare professionals, getting healthcare professionals to look and read and learn about the latest or the best treatments that are out there. These things haven't changed, but the manner in which we help them to do that absolutely has in the last 2 years. A lot of you have got lots of screens in front of you, I see today. So you've probably got one ear listening to what I'm saying, hence the reason I'm going to be a bit louder, and one eye on what you're doing back in the office. And that office can be anywhere in the world. So again, think about your daily life and think about the changes in the lives of healthcare professionals today. That's the world that we now live in, and I've worked in healthcare for nearly 25 years. It's the most exciting time to be working in digital health that I have ever known. So if we think about those healthcare professionals just for a minute, think about their lives. They are now empowered. They now can do their job anywhere in the world. They can keep pharmaceutical companies at bay, the power. Their bricks and mortar is no longer a thing. So that's making big organizations also have to think differently about what they're looking to do. If we think about digital health over the last 3 years, it's been an evolutionary change. And really what the pandemic has done has made digital health into a revolutionary phase. Digital health is by far the tipping point of a spear. It's the sharp end of the spear even. Now, if you want to be thinking about being an innovative company in the next 2 years, then you have to have a specific digital health strategy with the resources and the budget allocated to it tomorrow. If you haven't got it today, tomorrow. So we're going to talk about interconnectivity. We're going to talk about some examples that are here right now in the UAE. But before we do that, I really want to be able to talk about healthcare. We seem to have an issue with the slides. I'm going to keep going. Forget the slides. Luckily, there's hardly any content on the slides. So when we think about healthcare previously, clinical science was the predominant factor in the equation. And our belief at Pivot is that the combination of clinical health with digital science is the driving equation for digital health in the next couple of years. If you think about your patients, they are empowered, they are activated, they are no longer the docile citizens just taking the word and advice of a doctor. The last 2 years, for example, has shown people medical graphs for the first time. How many of us, when we've been watching about COVID, have seen statistical charts on the news, have actually been, for the first time, exposed to clinical data and comparators country by country, cause and effect. We have an empowered and an educated population now who are taking responsibility for their health. I notice some of you got your masks on. Well done. But that's you looking not only after yourselves, but looking after the people around you. It's you taking responsibility for your own health. And it's a societal awakening of healthcare. And with that comes the opportunity for technology. Where are we? We're here. Fantastic. And all of these elements that you can see here equate to digital health. But this is all quite abstract. And what I wanted to do is to really give you some examples today that are very local. So we're going to start off. You guys click. You just move it forward. So we're going to start off today here in the UAE. In December 2021, the Ministry of Health for Dubai and Abu Dhabi got together and launched the Riyati platform. So this platform is a modern healthcare system for electronic patient records here in the UAE. And you might say, well, that's not new. Everybody's been doing that for ages. In fact, I worked on an electronic patient record system 22 years ago in the UK. It was the first time that they tried to bring together 70 individual systems into one central data spine. And it was painful. The thing has only really just got up off its knees now. The opportunity that the UAE has right now is that you have no baggage, you have no legacy systems to overcome, and you have the advantage of the learnings from lots of other countries around the world to be able to adapt and bring a hybrid healthcare system to the UAE right now using partnerships and technology that are on your doorstep. So that enables you to start from scratch. You're pioneering a new age of hybrid healthcare systems in the UAE. But with pioneering comes expectation. Comes a demand almost from government, from your partners, and also the citizens within, that this is here, the data that you're collecting on behalf of us as a society. What are you going to do with it? What's next? How are you going to improve healthcare systems in the UAE now that you know how we all behave and where the areas of concentration need to be? There we go, and I've just finished on that slide. So that's one example right here about how you use innovation and how technology is up to date. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more, again, about the UAE, but we're going to bring it down into a condition. So I'm going to talk about diabetes. Diabetes here in the UAE. So the International Federation of Diabetes says that 1 in 10 people have diabetes currently. Here in the UAE, it's 1 in 6 people have diabetes. And by 2030, 95 million people in the MENA region will have diabetes. So that's a huge, huge potential financial, economic, internal, political issue that needs to be faced and dealt with right now. Now, diabetes is a chronic condition, but it is one where wellness can actually be the predominant factor here. Excuse me, I'm just going to go back to my notes. When we think about diabetes through the pandemic, there was also a further survey that said 60% of services and people with diabetes really struggled during the pandemic. Because diabetes is a traditional healthcare setup, it is a clinic-based setup. So those people that aren't used to using technology or digital health really struggled. So 2 years is a long time for a population to be underserviced. A lot of the people suffering with diabetes now have gone online. The behavior has changed. Situation and circumstances forced people to change. So the opportunity for diabetes with digital health here is huge. And AstraZeneca are already ahead of the curve. Their HealthGate platform looks to develop an AI-based platform that learns from group and community data. It's looking at where are the similarities, what is the cause and effect of introducing tactics within diabetes to introduce people to look after themselves better. The whole idea about wellness rather than illness. Thinking about 95 million people by 2030 having diabetes, how can we use digital health to get ahead of that, to help people manage their lifestyle and help manage their community around them? All right. So I'm going to stick with diabetes, and we're going to talk about clinical science, really recognizing digital science. So the thing with diabetes and a lot of chronic conditions as a patient, and this is really where I want us all to kind of always be thinking when you're thinking about digital health. We are all patients, therefore any solutions and products that we're looking to develop need to be incredibly patient-centric. And this really is what this partnership between Roche and MySugar is really demonstrating. So Roche really wanted to develop here, again, in the UAE and the MENA region, a patient-centered digital strategy. They partnered with MySugar. MySugar is one of the largest diabetes platforms in the world. 3 million registered diabetes sufferers are on there across 80 different countries. But what they're looking to do within this region is learn from your global audience. Learn from the global audience of people suffering with diabetes. What can we learn from more established markets? What can we already accelerate? We don't have to test. We don't have to trial. How can we brief our partners? How can we look for tech providers to actually help us learn from the data that comes out of MySugar? And how then can we actually then push it into the local country? MySugar, by the way, is not about segmented. If you're a diabetes sufferer, you get content left and right. You use different devices, AccuCheck, Novo Nordisk, you've got insulin pens, you've got lots of data creation. And MySugar works across all of these different platforms. Simplicity for the patient, simplicity for people who are responsible for analyzing the data and creating new products at the back of it. So that was a quick run through of some of the innovations and how some of the things that are happening right here in the UAE. So now think about this and multiply it by region, by country, by different operating units within pharmaceutical companies, within biotechs, within healthcare providers. There is a lot of stuff happening out there at the moment. And I'm a patient and I'm confused. So actually making sure that we understand the interconnectivity of all of these platforms is essential. It worked. So these future models, I'm not going to talk through every one of these because you'll see it's bingo buzzword up there for digital health. But every one of these things now needs to have a much more interconnected mindset. If we think about telemedicine, telehealth, great. We've learned how to use it over the last 2 years. The exponential increase and facility of telehealth. What is next? What have we learned from the last 2 years, and what's the next product look like? There are lots of different platforms out there, but what is the one platform that everybody gets used to using? This is where we're going to start to see a whole new raft of people coming into healthcare with retail mindsets, consumer mindsets, banking mindsets, finance mindsets, and unless some of our ways of thinking adapt, some organizations are going to get run over in the next 2 years by the technology providers coming into healthcare. I mean, synthetic data is a big piece of where we are fascinated with at the moment at Pivot. It offers us huge potential to speed up clinical trials. It offers us huge potential to remodel how people are looking at using their omni-channel investments, as well as their sales techniques and sales strategies. But what we're not seeing at the moment, we're seeing the disconnect within organizations of people that know and understand how to use that. And coming back to the previous presenters' examples, there are people in all the big healthcare organizations at the moment talking great game, but they're talking about it in small groups. They're not talking about it at the C-suite. They're not talking about it in the brand teams. They're not talking about it in the sales teams. And therefore, innovation gets siloed. Projects get siloed. Too many people are talking about things still as an app rather than a product. The thing that patients are not going to put up with anymore is organizations punting out digital apps for it to die a death in 18 months' time. We have to start to really create relationships with patients through digital health and have the resource and the long-term mindset to invest in a community. If you want to retain these people as patients, and you want to retain a constant source of data coming into your organization that you can then use to develop new products, you've got to invest people, you've got to find different talent, you've got to find the money, and you've got to have a C-suite that understands why you're doing it. Back to the previous presentation that you've got there. It is a similarity. And we have seen mindsets changing. I have never known pharmaceutical companies, for example, to be more willing to onboard new startups like our own startup. Never have I seen them as willing to experiment with ideas, create environments in which experimentation is allowed, where risk is understood. They're not comfortable with it. But what I'm seeing is a mindset change towards being uncomfortable, which is great because pre-pandemic, everybody was very comfortable. Change was not on the agenda, hence the reason it was an evolution of digital health, not a revolution. I have definitely gone off my script. So the future of digital health as we see it. So I've kind of given you 3 examples around hybrid healthcare ecosystems, clinical science meeting digital science, wellness over disease care. You can see within, I'm literally not going to go through the bullets. So you can see here there's lots of implications right the way through, whether you are working in a healthcare system, a large hospital, an insurance company, a biotech, small, an innovation-based business. There is huge opportunities right now if you're looking forwards. I'm just starting to see traits of organizations looking over their shoulder and thinking about the good old days. The good old days where I can send people out on the road again and everybody gets comfortable shaking hands with doctors again without thinking about the progress that people have made in the last 2 years. And it's our job in this room, if we're talking about Health 2.0, to make sure that we challenge these organizations to stay focused on the next 2 years. Do not look back, look forwards. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but that's just the way it's going to be. If people don't think about looking forwards, again, they're going to find themselves up against some stiff competition very soon. So these are the 4 real cornerstones in our mindset. In fact, Toby, my business partner, is sitting down there. I'm sure he actually wrote this slide. But this is how we are basing our business going forward. So rewriting the rule book. I noticed I've got a countdown clock here. Okay. So I just wanted a little bit of, so why did we start the business that we've started? What do we do? We're an innovation business, really focused around product development that organizations own. I've spent most of my career working in big organizations. Again, very comfortable organizations. We know how to make money. We know the margin that it takes to make money. And we know how to convince a group of healthcare businesses how to buy what we purchase. And that's great. Everyone's comfortable. Everybody gets a bonus. But you take a cold, hard look at how you want to accelerate. From Toby and my perspective, we couldn't do it within the system. We had to break out, and we had to be able to give people a perspective on what they were doing from an independent viewpoint. And that's really what we wanted to do. And how do we do that? Well, I'm slightly embarrassed as a middle-aged white guy to be standing up here talking to you lot about digital anything. So the first thing that we look to do is we look to recruit a whole bunch of raw talent, brand new talent that haven't got any baggage, no unconscious bias, no learnings, no lessons through the last 20 years to come in and tell us what it's like to be 25 again. I can't quite remember what it's like to be 25 again. But the new age of people coming out of the academic institutes that we're looking at, and we're looking at global academies and universities right the way around the world, they are frighteningly talented, frighteningly smart, and they come into healthcare completely unfiltered. They do not care how many years you've worked in pharmaceuticals. They will tell it to you straight. So our job is to make sure that we encourage that unfilteredness and don't overlay our view of the world on this young talent, because they are the ones that are going to help to change mindsets. Now, we're able to do that because we're a small organization. So if you think of yourselves as a Pfizer or a Roche or a large healthcare organization right now, how do you get that talent coming in without then overlaying the way that your business works? How do you keep that spirit and that energy and that innovation alive within your business to cut through? Secondly, it comes back to that point about risk. Organizations have to change their attitude to risk. I mean, again, the first presentation today was about getting content out in a regulated environment. It takes 9 months for a small business in some organizations to even get a contract signed. That can't continue if you want to be agile enough to really develop what you will want to talk about when it comes to digital health. When it comes to getting content signed off, the regulatory bodies have to look at the world around them. Too often we're finding at the moment is that the rules have been written 10 years ago. And no one really has had a cold, hard look at the world in which we are being asked to operate in as innovators. The Amazons in the world don't really care about the way things used to be. They are coming in and rewriting the rule book. And unless we are brave enough to hire new talent, have a different attitude to risk and experimentation, we are not going to be able to maximize the opportunity that, it sounds strange, the opportunity that the last 2 years has given to us from a digital health perspective. What does this look like? Oh, I could talk to you about drones delivering your pills to your back garden. I could talk about electronic healthcare records from birth, DNA testing to track at what age you're going to start to suffer from a chronic disease and all these things. All of this is going to happen. It's whether or not you as an organization, as a healthcare organization, want to be part of it, or whether you're comfortable with the margins you're making right now. It's whether or not you want to actually take part in helping the globalization of digital health. And that's our core purpose. Our core purpose is to get healthcare into the hands of as many people globally as is humanly possible. And if by helping other organizations to do what they do better and to constantly challenge people to think differently and to only work with experts rather than generalists, then we've managed to achieve our purpose. So, I suppose this is a question for all of you here. You've all flown in many thousands of miles. You've drunk the coffee outside. You've had your breakfast. Great. This is Health 2.0. Almost Health 2.0 almost sounds quite outdated now when we kind of come in here. This is where are we next? So you've all come here for a purpose and a reason because you, I hope, want to help that globalization of digital health and keep that innovative spirit going. So when you leave here, we're always looking for partners, right? So one of the big things for Pivot is that we want a global organization of like-minded business partners who we can help accelerate your business, and you can help accelerate our business. We don't want to be generalists. We want to be experts in what we do. Innovation, data, product development. That is what we are here to do. And so if you can help us to do that better, or we can help you to do that better and introduce you to other people, come and meet us outside afterwards. There's so much to talk about. It's an incredibly exciting time. Thank you very much. Ooh. Any questions? Go on, I've got a question. Got to take his mask off, can't see your lips.
Ask if there are too many changes happening in the world now regarding the healthcare, but one thing is going backwards and backwards, time to time. How about the security of the data? So most of the time I'm working with other companies, like pharmaceutical companies, like hospitals, big branch of hospitals, and most of the time we encounter the question of what about the security of the data. So it seems like the people, the public, is really eager to share everything they are doing, like in the social media. But when it comes to their data, which is most useful for the clinical sciences, their blood sugar, their hemoglobin A1C levels, these are confidential. So I don't see the means, I don't know why it is just set up like that in our minds, but how about the challenge coming from everyone? What about the security of data?
Thank you for that. So if I think about what's on my phone and what I've shared over the last 2 years, the British government have kind of almost digitized the patient population of the UK, not by stealth, but because it was a necessary requirement. And I think that a lot of this is literally with no basis whatsoever, but I'm going to make the statement anyway. The average citizen understood the need to share their data. If you want to travel, you need to have your passport. If you go into that QR code, it gives you every single element of data about that vaccine, gives you every single data about who gave it to you, where it was manufactured, what the batch number is. People, I think now, again, have been woken up through the last 2 years to the power of sharing their information. You know, every night, how many people had been in hospital? How many people had actually registered for a PCR test? How many people? And they were part of the solution. So again, it's making sure that we always remember to go back to that and get people to understand the sharing piece around their healthcare data. There are going to be some areas where security, well, generally security is a key element right the way through patient data. But I think the voluntary sharing you are likely to see in the next 18 months, if you work in rare disease, even if you work in any category of therapy, you're likely to see the increase in participation if you ask for it. Got to ask for the participation, and you've got to tell people what the benefits are to participating. COVID, it was very obvious. You could see what the benefits are. You don't get ill. That's the cause and effect. So again, what I see in lots of communications where we're asking people to do things for us, we don't talk to them like normal human beings. Just talk to them, give them a great experience, understand their personal needs, and design communications that are intuitive. And that will help you to then get a decent base of your data, or you switch back around and start using synthetic data. But that's a whole different ballgame. We won't talk about that. Any other questions? Ooh. Hello. I'm just going to try and open some water.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nitya. I work in mental health in India, and there's a lot of issues there, mostly because we have such a load of language challenges. But I think my question for you was about, these days I've been getting a lot of people asking me, what do I do when my workplace is providing me insurance and mental health care and digital care and all of these things, although I'm remote, but I don't want to share this information with them. 1 in 3 of us have some kind of mental health issue, but I don't think 1 in 3 of us have told our boss, sorry man, when I wake up in the morning, I get panic attacks. So how am we navigating that? Because that is the future.
An interesting question. Let my brain just calculate that for a second. I think as we start to move forward in the next couple of years, and we're starting to see the benefits of the learnings of new companies such as Amazon and the way that they are looking at the use of data in the cloud, I think what we will need less and less real-world data to be able to prove an endpoint. So there will always be those people that are voluntarily step forward and give their consent. There will always be people that are very guarded about what they are willing to share, and that's absolutely the way it should be. We need to make sure that we allow people that freedom to want to take part or not. It's up to us to make sure that we do the best we can to convince people to take part, but we need to understand the new techniques and the new methodologies of interpreting data. Doesn't necessarily mean we need 10,000 points like we used to do in the old days. 1,500 data points may be sufficient to prove your case these days and to be able to model it out in different languages, in different cultures. It just depends on how brave you are and whether or not your organization is willing to move away from old methods and understandings in the use of data. Did that answer your question? I like that. We can talk about more outside. Thanks. Hello.
Hi. We have over 1,200 electronic medical records in the United States. Most of them are obsolete. How do you see the future of electronic medical record? Again, most of them are obsolete and they're not patient-centric.
Well, the future of electronic health records is that they're not owned by one organization. You own them yourself. And you are responsible from them, literally from the point of birth, right the way through. And it follows you wherever you are. So today, if I wanted to dial up a great telehealth service here in Dubai, that physician could be based in Nigeria, and that physician should be able to access my electronic healthcare records in the UK. That is where it's going to go. You will be a global citizen when it comes to healthcare. But we've got to be able to make sure that we can actually access that talent and that healthcare physician in Nigeria to help the technology based here in the UAE work as well as it can. And then we need to make sure that we talk to governments to make sure that their electronic health records approach is changed when it comes to the future. So freedom, security, absolutely a key aspect of anything to do with the electronic health records, but people understanding that they actually can do things with it themselves, that it is a passport for them to be able to look after their own wellness and their family's care. Hopefully that was an answer. It was an answer. Whether it's the right answer is a different question.
Reynald Ael from Mina Relife, reinsurance company in Lebanon. Okay, so we're sure that implementing digital health in the insurance field would be very beneficial, but how can we actually implement it in our work in order to improve claims or, I don't know, like general health, because it's very beneficial in the insurance field? How can we actually implement this?
I suppose from an insurance point of view, if you think about the comparators to data in the car insurance side of things, you don't want a little black box under the bonnet checking that you're always going at the right speeds to be able to, so you don't want to use an electronic healthcare record to actually showcase to an insurance company that you are doing the relevant number of steps every day, that you're eating the right amount of calories, for example. So again, that's a big question. So that's that point around your service redesign. What is it that you are aiming to do and be as an organization in 2 years' time? What is it and where are you targeting the people that you want to come and buy your services? And what are you saying to them is a benefit to their wellness by having this insurance? Again, it's that difference between a lot of the humankind only wait until they're ill to actually go and see a doctor. Pretty much the same with insurance companies, right? I don't really talk to them until I really need to, because what have they got to tell me about anything, right? It's that change. It's that change that we've just been speaking about, wellness before illness. So what services do you provide around the end cost? And if you think about pharmaceutical companies, that's very much the same thing. Traditional models, I'll sell you my pill, I'll sell you my product, but I'm not going to wrap any value-added services around this. Now, healthcare systems globally expect you as a manufacturer to give me, why am I going to pay you the money you want me to pay you? You've got to give me a reason to come to you over somebody else. So my point to you would be, what is the reason you have for somebody to come and work with you or give you their money? Are you part of my wellness regime or not? That's the question. And we can talk about that afterwards as well. Great. Oh, one more. Blimey.
Hi. It's a great presentation. Thank you so much. My name is Dinesh. I represent the communication side of digital health. So I come from India, and one of the challenges that we are seeing here is the different levels of digital health. From migrants to digital natives. And different tier cities when you have in terms of your penetration of technology and adoption. How do you tackle the different attitudes and behavior of different consumers at different level so that the adoption of digital health could escalate to the next level?
So let me get the question right. So you have varying levels of digital maturity amongst the people that you want to use the facilities. How do you manage to get more people engaged regardless of their maturity? Right. So blimey, you guys are really pulling out some big questions this morning. So if I was to take an average European country, they've been on a journey, a slow, uncomfortable journey for 20 years to get to this. Innovative countries like India, the UAE, for example, it's not an instant thing. It's never going to be an instant thing, but it's not a 20-year thing. It's a 2-year thing. You now have the benefit of all of the experiments from other countries that you can now adopt. And that's not just technology, but that is also a way of enabling people to actually interact with the digital channels that are there. That mobile phone, that alone is the difference between now and 20 years ago. The ability to be able to get people to understand the power of this small piece of equipment is huge. It's huge here, it's huge across Africa, and it's phenomenal. Regardless of people's digital maturity, everyone's pretty much got a smartphone, right? Everyone's got that interconnectedness. So they know what they're doing, and that leveling off and that kind of people who are seen to be digitally native and digitally not. I think about my grandma. She was on TikTok the other day, which was all a little bit strange. But I think that again, the last 2 years has that might not be the case within India. But again, you're going to see acceleration. You're going to see leveling off between them. But with that comes huge numbers of people will have huge numbers of expectations. Before, you've been able to see an experienced digital group almost being used as testing groups for an innovation or an idea before the next group of early adopters come on board, then the last groups. But what you're going to face is because you have probably more of a level playing field of digital experience. If you put something out there, you've got to be ready to service a huge amount of interaction, a huge amount of expectation. And I think that's going to be one of the differences that we'll see across the next couple of years. People coming out, and as we all are, we do not suffer fools gladly. If you do not have that user experience, you do not have that answer for me right now, I'm off, I'm going somewhere else. So again, making sure that you have that product designed properly right from the start, and you have the business case in all scenarios worked out before you launch it. Essential. I feel like I'm now well over my time. Thank you very much. Thanks for the questions. Here all day.